Here's to you, dear listeners, and welcome to another episode of Metal Gear Mondays, the most thorough Metal Gear podcast on the internet. I am your host, Sam Wright, back at you with another interview episode. What the hell is this all about? I'm joined by my partner in crime, as always, Alessio Summerfield.
Hey guys, what's up? I think we should just throw the entire show out the window and just turn into an interview show forever now.
Oh, man.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still smiling off of this interview that we conducted. Yeah.
Yeah, so we took about an hour and we spoke to Kim Mai Guest, who you will know as Mei Ling from the Metal Gear series, who is honestly just one of the most delightful people I've ever had the pleasure of speaking to.
Yes, she has a very, very strong positive energy, and I really appreciated it.
Yes, very much so. We talked about her time with the series and kind of like her experience as a actor in the industry. And yeah, we had a good time talking to her. Apparently, this was her first kind of podcast interview, so it's very cool to be able to give her a painless experience in that respect. Is it too much to say that we're getting kind of good at doing these?
Yeah, I think we're okay. I think
we're
I think these are a lot of fun.
Yeah. So that's what we're doing today.
Yeah. Before we get into that, I do have a quick Patreon patron message request. I'm tripping over my words.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've got this 150 word message from new patron Winfred Casters. So thank you so much for writing in. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's WINFRIED Casters. But yeah, so Winfred says, "Hey guys, congratulations on the 100th episode. Quote, you're pretty good." Which I love because now if I look to my left from my computer desk, there is a copy of Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance signed by David Hayter that just says, "You're pretty good." So every time I read that, I always glance over. They said, "I listen to every one of your podcasts and wanted to share a short personal story as a big thank you. I started my Metal Gear journey back in 2001 when I was 14 and got to pick out a PC game at the store. I was deciding between two games and didn't know which one to pick when my dad helped me, and I went for the more, quote, digital puzzle-like game," his words, "for which I am forever grateful because it turned out to be one of the greatest games ever, Metal Gear Solid. I replayed all of the Metal Gear games while I was recovering at home from major heart surgery back in 2017. Gladly, they found and removed the Fox Die virus. I'm fully healthy now. Your podcasts were like having friends playing alongside me while I was passing the time, so I would like to thank you so much for helping me get through 3 long months of recovery. Sincerely, Winfred, a.k.a. pronounced like a blaster bullet from Star Wars, from Belgium."
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's very similar to one of the stories that Kim Mai shared with us on the podcast as well.
Yep, absolutely.
So heartwarming.
Heartwarming. Thank you, and thank you for that. Patron, if you'd like a what?
No, it's funny. It's funny to me. Between Patreon patrons patronizing and just all of those words, it's just funny to me how many times that we say these like weird archaic like turn of the century British words all the time now.
Yeah, if you'd like to be a patron of the arts, patron saint of Metal Gear. What do you think? Who do you think David Hayter would be the patron saint of Metal Gear, or would it be Chris?
Oh man, I think Chris is definitely the like mother of Metal Gear.
Yeah.
She is the Madonna figure. She is the Mother Mary of Metal Gear.
Would you say the big mama of Metal Gear?
Yeah, the big mama of Metal Gear. I don't know what that makes David, but yeah, there's some saints in the Metal Gear universe that we have.
Absolutely, Cam Clark. So patreon.com/Metal Gear Mondays. $1 if you'd like to contribute will get you access to our Discord server. We do an extra special podcast at $2 for patrons only. $5 you get the, like Winfred gets a 150 word message that we'll read on the show. It could be Could be just about anything. We do have limits.
Yeah.
So
When I think about once a month, we typically do like a roll call of all of the $5 and up folks, and a lot of the folks are going to be the $10 up people. Get some super special video treats, and some of them are going to be receiving like a 10-ish minute long like video documentary of our Renton City retro trip. So.
Yeah, so everybody is going to get our podcast documentation of the Renton City Retro event that we went to here in Washington, and everybody is also going to get. We're going to put it on YouTube probably, kind of like a trailer, like a teaser of like the video of the event. But patrons, $10 patrons are going to be the ones who get the full on video experience. So.
Yeah, and that might already be out by the time this releases. We are so far in the future with these recordings at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
I have no idea.
So, who knows? So yeah, check out patreon.com/Metal Gear Mondays. You can also check out youtube.com/Metal Gear Mondays for the aforementioned trailer that we had discussed. We're on Facebook, Twitter, everywhere podcasts are distributed. You can find information about all of that at metalgearmondays.com. And yeah, and you know what else is, do us a favor and go on like iTunes and other like podcatchers and review or recommend us. I know Overcast, the way that they put their recommended podcasts on the front page is by listeners recommending the podcast. So do that. Leave a review on iTunes. And that's how we get spotted there. That's how we get, more and more. So just check it out.
Yeah, I think as of time of recording, we've got like a 4.7 out of 5 from like 44 recordings, 44 ratings, which is pretty cool. Which means I think that fella who gave us the 3 out of 5 might have actually given us some points back.
Ooh.
So, but Death Mask Divine is still there. That stain on our record. But yeah, we will find you, and we will please you at some point.
Whoa,
that sounded very forward. A
little forward. Yeah. If, as long as you're okay with it.
Of course.
But yeah, so check us out on all those various platforms. I think that's it. Alessio, where can they find you on the internet?
At AC Summerfield, pretty much anywhere. I know a bunch of people have been adding me on PSN and like Steam and stuff, so come find me.
Yeah, you can add, and I want to put a note about that. You can find me on Twitter at Sanjul. That's SANJUUL. I'm also Deadpool Alpha on PSN. I welcome people adding me on PSN. Put a note in your message.
Yeah.
That you are coming as a listener of Metal Gear Mondays, because I get a lot of like weird friend requests sometimes, and sometimes they turn out to be like those weird spam accounts. I don't want to add those. So
not spam girls.
Not spam girls, not gamer girls.
It's always spam girls for some reason. Like I only never get blown up by like spam women.
Yeah. Where's the spam boys at?
Yeah, I need my spam boys.
I need my spam boys. Gross. Yeah. So just leave a little message. Just like, it doesn't even have to be long. Just type in MGM in the message, and I'll add you back. So do that if you'd like to add me on PlayStation. And yeah, and we mentioned this at the end of the podcast, but you can follow our lovely guest, Kim Mai Guest, on Twitter at Kim Mai Guest. That's KIMMAIGUEST, if you'd like to follow her on Twitter. Yeah, and find out what she's doing next.
Yeah, and I think she also has a website as well, but I believe the website is actually just like a still image, unless I can't figure out how to crack the code. Probably should have asked her about that. I was like clicking all over the place. I was like, can I get in? But yeah, so you should check her out online. She's great. And look her up on Audible, because I would definitely listen to a book that she read.
Oh yeah.
So, and probably will. I will seek one out.
She has kind of like a passion for YA novelizations, which even now as a grown man, I enjoy YA fiction. So.
Yeah, we're all young at heart, right?
Yeah. I'm still a young adult, damn it.
Yeah, before I can manage to say more dumb shit before we get to this interview, we should probably just cut to the interview.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Hey, let's talk to Kim, my guest.
Snake, in China they say, when walking through a melon patch, don't adjust your sandals. That means that when things get really bad, you have to try to remember what's important. Keep things in the proper perspective, okay?
And look at that. Now we're recording a podcast.
It's like magic.
Blue skidoo
Yep.
into the podcast.
Exactly. So yeah, we're joined by our very special guest for today. We have Kim Mai Guest with us, otherwise known as Mei Ling from Metal Gear Solid. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, yes. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. So one of the things that we really like to do is use these interviews as a way to kind of introduce our pretty international audience to like the backgrounds of some of the folks that have worked on these games, and just kind of illustrate that you guys are human beings as well. And so we were interested in hearing kind of like your, I guess, your origin story. Like how did you come to be a voice actor?
Oh, wow. That's a long story. I guess I always knew I wanted to be an actress or actor, however you prefer to call it. My, so I was always involved in theater, even like as far as, I don't know, I was probably 7 or 8 when I was doing theater back in Indianapolis, and I went to college to study theater, and then after I graduated, I moved to LA. And my day job was I was working as a children's theater actor, and we would go to schools and libraries all over the state of California, and I loved, 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 loved it. I loved the energy, and I loved playing all these different characters, and I got to be, little boys and old women and monsters and, just anything that we needed, and I loved that. And, because like when you're doing on camera, you're so limited, unless you're Ben Kingsley, you're limited by what you look like, right? So, and back then it was sort of like I'm half Vietnamese, so back then it was like, well, you're not Asian enough to be Asian, but you're not, white enough to be white, and what are you? Where do you fit? It was really hard, and so I was like, okay, well, what am I gonna do? So I did the children's theater, and I loved that, and I thought, this is great, but it really doesn't earn a lot of money. So what else is like this? And and I thought, well, animation's kind of like that. So I just started taking classes around LA, like anything and everywhere I could find. And Chris Zimmerman was one of the classes I took. And I guess it was soon after her class, she called me up and she was like, so can you do a Chinese accent? And I was like, oh, I don't know. How long do I have? And she's like, 3 days. And I was like, yes. So yeah, I just committed to it, and I said, okay, I'll just do it. And I rented the movie Red Corner, and I picked a couple speeches from that, and I just worked with it as hard as I could, and went to the audition, and thought I did horrible. I was so upset. I was like, oh my god, it's terrible. And I was crying and all this stuff.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
not there, but later I was. And then I got a call from Chris, and she's like, oh, you got the job. And I was like, oh my god, that's so awesome. So that's my whole story right there in about 10 seconds.
Yeah, that's insane. From yeah, we went from beginning to Metal Gear, like at the drop of a hat. I love it. Chris was great to talk to. We actually talked to her a couple weeks ago, and it's thanks to Chris that we were able to get in contact with you. How is she as far as a teacher? Was she a good teacher?
She is awesome. I call her my angel, because she really is. She's basically been the beginning. I mean, she created my career from the beginning. I took her class, and she had, amazing things to teach in her class, and we got to actually work in a real studio with real scripts, and she was, an animation director. So she really was coming from, a place of professionalism and, everything like that. So the fact that I got to be in her class was really special for me, and I loved her. She was just really kind and supportive, and really fun to work with. So so I was really happy to hear from her after the class, and she really was looking for an Asian actress to play that character, since she was supposed to be Asian, and
So
she really
was
didn't have to. I mean, anybody could play, that part. And this was back when people did, they didn't
yeah.
really, it wasn't as common to cast ethnically appropriate actors. So so I was really happy she made that choice,
So was Mei Ling your first voice role then? Or
It was my absolutely very first
wow.
voiceover role. Yes. And it was super challenging. I mean, I can't even imagine thinking back like, oh my God, I can't believe that was my very first role, because here I am doing an accent, a Chinese accent that I had learned in 3 days, and and we're like, quoting Shakespeare and Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and I'm like, this is not your normal dialogue. And Chris is very demanding as a director. She's like, she wants it, and she wants it now, and she wants it to be right, and she wants
Yeah.
about 5 options to go with that. So, it was like, and then we had the whole cast there, so there was a lot of pressure with just like the other actors, and then there was like everybody in the room, and it was really an amazing experience, but it was also really challenging too. But yeah, anyway.
So I had a question for you. We were talking about this a little bit before we started recording. But you had mentioned, so you were born in Indianapolis, correct, or in
Yeah.
Indiana? So most of the people that we've talked to so far have been from Ohio and the Midwest area.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea why do you think that is?
Maybe it's in the water. I don't know. My thought is, at least growing up, I had heard that the Midwest area around Chicago was like this broadcast standard of speech, regionalisms and things, and that's kind of what they were shooting for. So maybe that could be part of it, in that, when they're casting for commercials, which is a large part of the, voiceover work. Maybe they're shooting for things like, people who have that sort of Midwest dialect. I don't know. That would be my only guess. I don't know. But has anyone else had an answer for that?
I think I've heard that, and I've also heard that like in the Midwest, people are a little bit more accent neutral, so it's easier for those people to learn new accents.
Yeah, that could be too. Yeah, I know. I had to kind of work through some of my Midwesternisms. Like I used to say engine instead of engine and things like that.
I refuse to let those go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm out on the West Coast. I refuse to let it go.
Yeah, you can't. But like when I do a lot of audiobook work, and they're like, no, that's not engine, it's engine. And I'm like, oh yeah, right.
Yeah, as a total aside, I mean, how does like reading for something like Mei Ling's role in the original Metal Gear Solid, how does that compare to an audiobook? Because I imagine reading like pages and pages and pages of audiobook must take a toll, right?
It is. It's, for me, I call it like the marathon of voiceover work because you go for 6-8 hours, well, for more like 6 hours a day for like maybe a week, and you're all focused in there, but and you have to just keep going, and you can't lose your mojo, your energy, your diction, or your brain, because your brain gets really tired just focusing so intently and for so long. At least that's my experience. But games can be that way too, because you've got really long sessions and scripts. I mean, the script for just Mei Ling was at least probably 2 inches thick when I got it, and that was back in the days of paper. So they mailed it to me, and there was this big stack of papers, and I'm going through, and that was just for Mei Ling. I think for the whole thing, Chris was telling me there was just like reams of paper, because the script is so long, and nowadays I'm sure it's even longer, with the more complexity and characters and computer memory and bandwidth and everything. So I don't know.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you prefer? I know because you've done a lot of like cartoon voices and video games and audiobooks. I mean, do you prefer like one type of project over another?
No, I love it all. I really, really, really do. Just because every form has its good things that I love about it. Like games, I love the intensity, and how you really get to live on the edge. I mean, how often do you get to die, in everyday life? Almost never. But, in video games, you get to do it at least 20 times, in every way possible. And like audiobooks, I get to learn a lot of different stuff. And I love being able to do all the voices, every single voice. I love doing that. And actually, when I was a kid, I would sit around with my friends, and we would read like radio plays from books and stuff, and as dialogue. And I'm like, that is so weird that I end up doing this for
That's
a
awesome.
living. But anyway, so but I get to do poetry, and I get to explore different cultures that I would never have thought existed through audiobooks, and I feel like I'm really helping people, literacy, learning about reading and stuff like that. So it's I love that part, and But I mean, every form to me has a really interesting aspect to it. Whether it's games or books or commercials, even, or animation, it's all great.
Yeah, and I think hearing you put it that way actually kind of I don't know, makes it seem a little bit more of like a passion-driven like thing that you really enjoy doing. Because I know even outside of games, like having worked as a freelancer in the film industry for a long time, I mean, there are
Yeah.
definitely those people that treat those kinds of jobs like it's plumbing. You know what I
Oh,
mean? They're like,
yeah.
oh, it's a living, and it's I don't know. So it's cool to hear somebody sound like still extremely passionate about the work that you're doing. That's awesome.
Absolutely. I love it. I cannot think of a better thing to do.
You
Except maybe writing would be cool too, I think.
have you ever dabbled in that before for like anything official or the writing part? Yeah.
Writing? Um, well, as actors we get to improv a lot, so that's kind of fun, you kind of put in your own thoughts and words and ideas and stuff. But beyond that, I actually have been writing on my own for like children's books and things for, I don't know, probably 15 years, maybe even longer. I don't know. But I've been a part of SEBWI, which is the Society of Children's Writers and Illustrators, for, I don't know, a long time, and worked with writing groups and stuff like that for that. But I haven't, it's sort of like this timeline. I haven't gotten to the point where I'm actually actively pursuing it yet, but maybe the time's coming soon. We'll see.
You never know. Always, never keep everything
Never know.
open.
Yeah.
When you finally like, but this isn't. I don't know if this is something we really ask a whole lot, but when you broke into the business, like what did your like family think? When you told them that like you got your role as Mei Ling, you were finally starting to do the thing?
Yeah. My dad was really, really happy. He's been really supportive in my dream to be an actor, and he was always rooting for me, and so he was very excited. And even to this day, he's always like, "Oh yeah," whenever we meet somebody, he's like, "Oh yeah, she does voiceover and she does this and that, and this is," so it's like kind of cool to have your own cheering section. My mom was more typically, I don't want to say Asian, but she was like, she was more, every time I talked to her, she's like, "Well, why did you become a lawyer? Why did you become a
Mhm.
doctor? Why did you?" And that went on until I kind of got more well established, and I became the voice of Sears for a little while, and so things kind of worked out, and she was, after that, she was okay with it.
You
But
were
yeah.
you were the voice of Sears. You said like Sears Roebuck,
Oh,
this
Sears.
company.
Yeah. Yeah, Sears Roebuck. Yeah. That was really fun too.
That's actually that's really funny. We talked to Debbie Mae West a little while back, and she had mentioned that she's the voice of like Fred Meyer, groups of stores up in the Northwest, and some other places like that. And she had mentioned doing stuff like that, commercials and things like that is really where you get most of the money doing voiceover these days. Is that, what would you say about that?
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. The money is definitely pretty big in advertising. Because I guess the way they pay it is depending on like whether it's a national commercial or whatever. You can make just, thousands of dollars off of, doing one TV spot or whatever. So it's hard to compare that with, doing animation. But whereas it's kind of a continual sort of thing where you get paid set fees and then you get residuals and whatever. And then with games, it's just the session fee and then maybe a few extra things like if they go to internet or something like that. But so yeah, definitely it's where the bigger money is, and but even that, it's tough, to get, a campaign like that. It's kind of like winning the lottery.
Mm.
I mean, from what I heard, they had auditioned well over 400 some people
Whoa.
all over the country, and yeah, and this was 2001. So I mean, today would be even more probably if they're recasting, a new voice campaign or whatever. But
Yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad Sears isn't as like I guess prolific as they once were because it was interesting. I got to I actually went up to Seattle to see Sam after we talked to Debbie Mae West, and so it was fun to stand in the Fred Meyer and hear her come on. I was like, oh, there she is.
yeah,
So it'd be cool to go to a Sears and be like, oh, there she is.
yeah,
But I don't even know where the heck there are any Sears near me anymore.
I think they've closed all of their physical stores down now, and it's just sort of online mail order. But this was
Oh,
back in
gotcha.
2001 when they were still a pretty
Yeah.
big, store. So
For sure, for sure. That's crazy.
yeah.
Um, I guess while we're talking about just sort of these one-off kind of more unique projects, are there any projects from your career that you think back on super fondly, I guess, like outside of Metal Gear? And are there any ones that maybe got away that you wish you would have gotten?
Oh, well, on the getting away note, I have to say that when I audition, I often bond with the characters that I'm creating. So often it's hard to let that go and say, okay, well, that may be the last time I ever see you, poor little character. Um, but that happens to be sometimes. But there's no specific project that I thought, oh God, I wish I'd gotten that one.
Mm.
But and like I said earlier, it's like every project I do, there's something special about it that I really enjoy. So it's hard to pick, but there are some, like I really loved doing the Lord of the Rings video games because I grew up reading the Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, oh
Oh
my God, I can't
yeah.
believe I'm actually doing the voice of Eowyn or Arwen or whatever. It was really awesome. Um, Let me think. What else? And then there was Diablo. I loved doing Diablo because I actually played that for like a year.
Nice.
Like so hardcore. So that was really fun. And then like Final Fantasy also was like one of those games I played early on and I thought was awesome. And so being able to be a part of that game was really cool too. Oh, let's see. What else? I wrote some down because I knew I'd forget because I don't know. Once I do something, it's like I don't remember it.
Oh, no, you're fine. I feel like you've been in tons of stuff. So I feel like I would definitely have to document it as well.
Yeah. I know people are like, so what have you done? And I'm like, I don't
Yeah, no.
remember.
I carry a notebook around with me at work all the time just to write down useless stuff that I'm gonna need, so I understand.
That's what I should do, actually. Just write it down so I can remember and whip it out and say, oh, yeah, this is what I did. I actually was looking on IMDb, before this to kind of remember. And then I was like, there's a lot of stuff that I did that's not on there, actually. So I'm going to have to go through my records and actually go and
Yeah, I can believe it.
But let me think. Oh, so let's see. There was one thing I did. It was called Blade. That was really fun. It was just really realistic and sort of gritty, and I really enjoyed doing that. And
Like
that was
Blade,
right before.
like the Marvel character Blade, or
Yes,
oh
it
wow,
was. I think
okay,
it was an anime version. Yeah. And then we did GI Joe. Do you remember that? There
yeah.
was a whole ninja series or ninja episode.
Oh, yeah.
Really, really cool. But yeah, those are some of the ones that I came up with from looking over those past records.
That's awesome. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Well, I noticed that you worked on Ben 10 a little bit too, and you probably worked with Paul Eiding again on that.
Oh yeah. Yes,
You
definitely.
with Metal Gear Solid being your first role, do you keep in touch with the people that you worked with on the series, because you've done some work with them, like Paul, outside of Metal Gear Solid? What's it like to build a network of like voice acting friends?
They're great. That's one of the reasons I actually love voiceover, is because the people that I worked with in voiceover have been so amazing. They're just so nice and they're so welcoming and inclusive and just smart and fun, and there's rarely any kind of ego thing going on. It was just we're all here to do the work and enjoy it and have fun, and so it's been great. Excuse me. Also, Paul has been at my agency, so I see him often. When we would go into the agency to do auditions and things, along with Robin Atkin Downs and David Hayters also was at my agency and stuff. So we would all, we'd see each other at least once a week, if not more. So it's been great, getting to know so many really great people. My daughter was born in like 2011, and so I kind of took a break as far as auditioning and things. So that's maybe why you haven't seen me around in a while. But I've just started auditioning again, so hopefully things will pick up too in that respect. But and see people again, because I do miss seeing Paul. I'll see him on Facebook or whatever. Or I just went to David Hayter's birthday party maybe a month or two back, so I got to see a lot of people there, and that was really fun. And then like Jennifer Hale, she actually rock climbs, and so do I. So we've kept in touch kind of that way, and we always keep saying, oh, we should all go, and so hopefully we'll do that soon. But
what's a David Hayter birthday party like?
Yeah, it took the question right out of my mouth, Sam.
It's like any other birthday, I guess. Lots of people, lots of fun, lots of food and drinks.
He turned what, like 26, right?
Again, sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Oh, yeah. One of your questions you were asking me about being David's friend. So, so he and I basically have had like these like mutual friends forever, and so basically I would go to these parties and like he would be there to be like, oh my God, hi David, and we'd hang out and say hi and catch up and stuff. And so this was like years like that, and then all of a sudden when I walked in to do Metal Gear Solid, into the kitchen, I walk in and like there he is. It was so like out of place and random. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, what are you doing here? And he's like, well, I'm Snake. And I'm like, oh my God, this is great.
That's crazy.
Yeah, isn't that funny? It was just so completely random. It was cool.
It's super weird. I was thinking about it actually earlier today, because prior to kind of going down this like interview rabbit hole for the last several months, we had kind of covered all of the games in the series like a book club would. So we'd talk about it like chapter at a time. But the more that I've been thinking about kind of where the show's at right now, feels like we're kind of making a weird time capsule like about all of you guys.
Oh yeah.
And so like in a weird way, it feels like we're assembling all of you guys like sort of in this weird digital birthday party where you can stay forever.
It's like the Avengers almost.
Yeah, so it's cool to hear that you guys like hang out and do stuff, and I guess like rock climb and stuff. Like I don't know, it's bizarre.
I know, isn't it? All the weird ways we connect, Yeah, Heather Haley, she was at my agency too, so we got to spend lots of time together auditioning and stuff. And
oh, that's awesome.
What was I gonna say?
Did you change? Did you exchange philosophy quips and she gave you movie quotes? Did you guys go back?
Right. No, yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what her character's like because we weren't in the same game, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't play her game, so I don't know. But I know she's like super popular. So
yeah,
must
no,
have
she's
done a good job.
Yeah, she's on our short list of folks to talk to as well.
Yeah.
So
She's great. She's the nicest, sweetest person you'd ever want to meet. I love her.
nice. Well, so before we get into, I guess Metal Gear more formally, because I definitely want to make sure we ask you all these crazy Metal Gear questions we've written down. I wanted to ask you, and this is like our listeners are always clamoring to hear about this. Folks want to hear what you do for fun. So it sounds like you rock climb. Do you do anything else? Like, do you like certain music or movies or anything?
Let me see. What do I do for fun? I hike, I do yoga, I like to travel, spend time with my family, cook, I knit.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
I like to
Renaissance woman.
books. Yeah, I mean, I like to do a lot of stuff, and I like to learn new things too. So I'm always like wanting to find something new to do, and I don't know. But
awesome.
since I became a mommy, I do a lot of mommy stuff now, so, which is really fun
Because she would
too.
because your daughter is 8 now, right?
Almost.
So
Yeah.
what's that like?
Oh my God, she's so awesome. She's great. I mean, we have a great time. I homeschool her too, so we get to do a lot of fun stuff together. And she's really, really, really into audiobooks. When I was pregnant, I was working constantly. I was doing, video games. I was doing the Blade show. I was doing all sorts of audiobooks. So she basically heard me talking like 24/7, like all through her gestation. And she was so verbal. She started talking when she was like 9 months old, and she's been listening to audiobooks almost since. I mean, even now, not even ones that I do. She just listens to them all the time. So she's constantly like writing books in her head and talking and doing voices. And so I can see either literary or voiceover career in the future, possibly. But yeah, but she's really into science too, and engineering and aeronautics and natural sciences. So we're constantly doing really fun things.
That's very
That's
cool.
crazy.
Yeah,
All that, not even 8 years old.
I
Like,
know, isn't
that's
that crazy?
bananas. Well, perfect. So yeah, I guess we're gonna dive into some Metal Gear stuff.
Okay.
I feel like there were quite a few things that you kind of answered on the way here, so obviously we won't repeat anything. But yeah, I guess I had read online while doing a little bit of research that I guess that there were like a bunch of other folks kind of in the running for Mei Ling originally, kind of during final round. So I was curious to hear. I mean, obviously you told us that at the end you did receive the role, but
Yeah.
did you know about any of these other folks that were sort of in the running?
No, I had no idea. I think I may have read something about that on the internet, just like you did.
Mhm, mhm.
But I'm gonna have to ask Chris the next time I see her because I'm really curious now as to actually what did happen. But I have
Mhm.
no idea. As an actor, you just basically you audition and then you either get the call or you don't, and that's it. And they never mentioned to me about what other options there were. So
Right. Maybe Chris.
What
Hopefully,
have you
Chris doesn't get back
done?
to us. What'd you tell her? Why is she coming to me?
no, well, no, it was just a random rumor, something I read on the internet about like some well-known Asian actress was supposed to be doing it, and then the audition wasn't exactly what they expected or so. I have no idea. I just read this,
Oh wow.
and then Chris asked me to audition, and they were worried about how I didn't have any experience, and this was like such a big role, and should they take a chance on somebody who was an unknown quantity, and I think I read that Chris had encouraged them to take the chance, and that's how it turned out. But like I said,
Yeah,
that's
just Chris.
total rumor.
From
I just
everything
read
we've
that on the
heard, not only
internet. I
from her
have
Right,
but from
no
right.
everybody
idea.
else, Chris seems like everybody's kind of like fairy godmother in that way. She's
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad that everybody took the chance because I think I'm well within my rights to say
Mhm.
that Mei Ling is definitely like a fan favorite series wide.
Oh,
So
thank you. She's one of my favorites too. I think she's pretty awesome. I mean, not necessarily the way I did it, but the way she was written
Mhm.
and her character, and just like the quotes meaning, she's read a lot of stuff. She's been around, and she's just really cute. I really liked her.
yeah, and then she commands like a battleship or something in Metal Gear
Right.
Solid 4. So there's that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So we had discussed that. So Mei Ling has this Chinese accent
Uh-huh.
that you had to learn in 3 days,
Right.
right? So, um, they go into her background in the game as having been born in the United
Yeah.
States, and it maybe didn't make sense that she had the accent. And then when you came back to re-record Twin Snakes and then Metal Gear Solid 4, she doesn't have the accent anymore.
Right.
Do you have any insight into what the thought process and the perspective behind doing the change was and what happened there?
I don't know how it evolved. I do remember actually at the sessions for the original Metal Gear mentioning that, saying, if she was born in the U.S., she probably wouldn't have an accent. But I don't know I can't remember what the response was. And I guess since I believe they had recorded already in Japan, and that they were now recording English voices, that it had something to do maybe with that. I don't know. But I like her accent, actually. Maybe it would have been fun to just say, well, she's not from the US. She came from some other place in China or
Yeah.
whatever. Because I thought it was fun to have as part of her character. So, I mean, I like the accent, even though it didn't make sense. But I don't know, why it was, decided that she would have an accent, even though she was born here. Um, and then, of course, later, as we recorded the other ones and didn't have the accent, it was probably because of that. And I don't know, maybe as you get older too, you might lose an accent if you had one, So,
It's being immersed and everything.
yeah, right, right.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly too, I think like in her backstory, it's like she even went to like UCLA and all this other stuff. So
Oh,
it's
did
like,
she?
huh. But yeah, no, I mean, I think to be honest, because we've gone back, we not only did we cover the original Metal Gear Solid to kind of start the whole show several years ago, but we went back and kind of recently recovered that original game. Um, and I'm really fond of those original voices.
Yeah.
Like after playing the Twin Snakes and comparing the two, it's like I don't know, maybe it's nostalgia talking, but I feel like those original sessions feel a little bit more, I guess, in the atmosphere that I associate with Metal Gear.
Okay, yeah. Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Do you recall what it was like to come back into the studio to re-record for Twin Snakes?
Oh, I do. It was fun and exciting because we got, the gang back together again, and but it was a little weird trying to do Mei Ling without the accent, because in a way that for me was kind of her. So I was trying to have to reimagine her as we were going through the script. But yeah, that's about all I remember about it. Because I mean, it was fun, but it was different for sure.
When you guys got together again to do Twin Snakes, I know. So Chris even kind of talked about this,
Mhm.
and I think you just mentioned a house. It seems like the original Metal Gear Solid was like recorded in like a big house, which
Yeah.
is weird to me. Did you guys go back to that house for Twin
No.
Snakes, or did you go somewhere else? Like,
No, I don't think that house actually is a recording studio anymore. We actually went to a studio in Burbank that was, set up for animation and things and stuff. So it was a regular recording studio.
Normal.
Yeah, that was a funny house. I remember going there for the audition and going into an actual closet
oh wow,
for the audition.
whose house was that? I feel like we need to discover whose house that was for like Metal Gear historians down the road.
Yeah, I don't know. It was like this old house in Hollywood that they'd converted into this studio, and I remember it was like right on a corner with a stop sign. So like every now and then we'd have to stop for traffic because you'd hear like the trucks going. "Arr, arr."
Yeah, Paul mentioned when I talked to him about like a garbage truck that would
Yeah.
always show up and cause problems.
Yeah, I mean it was funny because it was like, okay, everyone hold for traffic, just like we were on a movie set or something.
That's
Um,
amazing.
and then I remember like the floorboard that I was standing on was like really creaky, so I couldn't move that much because otherwise I'd hear the. So there was that. And then I remember this too, like normally you have like the actors inside of a booth, right, that is isolated sound wise, and then you've got everybody outside of the booth, like with the equipment and sitting around and they can talk. But I remember us all being in the same room. So the people who were directing us were there and they had to be super quiet while we were recording, and yeah, it was different.
That's
Um,
wild. Yeah, it's crazy to me. I definitely understand why, but it's crazy to me that like you remember things like this creaky floorboard, all these years later. But I think that's super cool. I don't know. I feel like it adds a lot of like character to the stories behind it.
Yeah. Well, the house was super cool. It was like this really old house, like I would almost say like Victorian, and like when I saw David for the first time, it was in this actual kitchen of the house, and then we walked down the hall to what was probably the living room, and now is like the recording studio, and yeah. Anyway, yeah.
We should find that house. We should find that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we
Probably
have to at this
there.
point.
Probably a historical site at this point.
Yeah, that's bananas. I guess I'm just baffled. I mean, because obviously, I mean, between the original Metal Gear Solid and even I think when 4 concluded was what, like over a decade, so
Yeah.
or a decade-ish.
Yeah.
So I assume that things kind of changed from game to game. But I never in a million years imagined that there would just be like this party house in Hollywood where all the recordings happen.
I had a question. Where would you put Metal Gear on your list of things that you've done? Because you've done a lot of work with like Cartoon Network, and you said Diablo. You worked with Blizzard and Square Enix and things like that. Where would you place Metal Gear in the pantheon of things that you've done?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, it's really special just because it was my first job and it pretty much started my entire career. So, I mean, it's going to be pretty up there as far as something that I will always be grateful for and remember, and just really glad I did. I mean, just the experience from top to bottom was really wonderful, So I really can't compare it to anything else, really,
'Cause it's such like a unique feeling.
Yeah, it's like your first time, right? It's my
Right.
first job. And yeah, but I mean, I loved Metal Gear, but I loved all the other jobs too that I've done, in Diablo and World of Warcraft, and everything else, and the animation. I love doing animation, because it is a lot like doing theater in a way. Just the way it's written, and the characters and stuff like that. So I don't know. I love all of it, like I said.
Yeah, I even going through. It's funny that you mentioned the IMDb thing, because even just going through that, I always find these like little nuggets of things that I never imagined would be there.
Uh-huh.
And for me, I think for you, whenever I was scrolling through, I was like, "Hi, Puffy Amiyumi!" Like, are you kidding me? Like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So just I don't know. It's fun to kind of go back and see just all the crazy things that people have been in.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, I don't know if you saw this, but there was this, I don't know, it was like the intro to some Japanese game, I think, way back, like when games were just starting out, that David and I did, that was actually on camera. And we were like dubbed. We don't even have the English version of it. It's just like we were dubbed in Japanese, and it was just like our bodies and stuff, but it was really
Oh,
funny.
weird.
And
That's crazy.
yeah, it just popped up on our Twitter feed like some time ago, I guess. And that was pretty fun. I've got like green hair, I've got elf ears, I've got like this armor on, and David's this like really cool superhero type guy, and we're all speaking Japanese,
It's amazing.
It's hilarious.
Outside of all that stuff, I mean, obviously, I wanted to I wanted to talk about one other thing that it's funny that IMDb has become the subject of much of our conversation today. I saw sort of like, I always like to dig up the weird trivia that's on there, and I always wonder who puts that there. Like half the time, I assume it's just like your agent is the one putting it there. But
No.
I saw a piece of trivia that just like one of our listeners, actually, I was actually just talking to one of our listeners, Rachel Frank, about this. It seems like you played the original Metal Gear Solid and got stuck on that first Ocelot boss fight.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Did you ever complete the game, or did you permanently just plant a flag there?
I think that's where I stopped. But I had lots of family and friends who were playing the game, so I actually have seen the game, I think, from top to bottom, just by watching other people play it. So so it was really fun to watch and hear myself and hear everybody else playing in the game. But no, personally, I never made it past that.
Gotcha.
But my theory about that, because I know my agent and most agents, I think, are too busy to do that kind of thing. I think it's just fans kind of posting stuff, because like I look up my Wikipedia page and there's all sorts of stuff on there that's so not true. And I like, even, I wrote to Wikipedia. I was like, this is not true. This is me. This is my history. This is not true. And nothing ever changed. And they didn't get off or anything. So I was like, oh, okay, whatever. So
well, it's definitely good to know. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, yeah, I think that's a fair point. Like agents have a million other things to worry about every day.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's wild. Well, it's interesting too, because like, so we talked to Cam Clark, and we actually just recently on the main feed of the show just published an interview with Dean Schofield as well, and both of those gentlemen don't play games at all. And so it's really interesting to hear them say like, yeah, Konami shipped us a copy of the game after it came out, and we had no way to actually do anything with it, so we just kind of moved on.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I have to say, playing games really helps me when I record games, because you kind of have an idea of like where this line is going to fit in and how it's going to work, and how best to kind of make it neutral, because it could be popping up in all sorts of different contexts, and so I'm really glad I spent that year playing Diablo and other games like Final Fantasy and stuff, because it was really good, experience and background for then recording it. But yeah, I had to stop, because I was like, if I keep doing this, I'm not going to be doing anything else in my life.
Fair, yeah. I definitely have come across that crossroad many a time where it's like, do I spend time editing or working on this movie project, or do I flush 20 hours playing a video game?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So we had kind of talked about Mei Ling's I guess her quirk that she talks all the quotes and things like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Um were you familiar with any of those quotes going into it, or was this all they were given to you and you just kind of read them? And what do you kind of think about this quirk that she has to
Well, well, I definitely I really liked Shakespeare like growing up, so I've read some of those. And then others I had come across randomly as well, but I think some of them were made a lot of them were made up too. Made up quotes. Uh
Oh, really?
yeah, I kind of remember one. Maybe this is not made up, but I remember one thinking it was made up. It's like, never stop to fix your sandal strap in the field or something.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like,
I think that's one of our favorite ones.
yeah. I mean, I remember that like what 20 years later.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really interesting. I mean, you got to have original character elements to make them interesting people, and I think that was definitely original. Like I said, it was my first job, so I didn't have a lot to compare it with, but I'd never come across anything like that before. So yeah.
It's very eccentric.
Yeah, exactly. And certainly
Was
challenging when you're doing it with a Chinese accent.
because I remember growing up playing the game, and I was like I can't I think I was like 7 or something, and I was very bad at it. So whenever I would be about to go into like a tricky situation, I would just turn on the codec and I would just call Mei Ling over and over again and
Oh
just
yeah.
hear all the different quotes. So I very much enjoyed that particular quirk myself.
Really. Allowed you to put off like the really hard boss fights or
Exactly. That's what.
Yeah, I think the voice line that I will never forget of Mei Ling's is just anytime I'd go to save, but then I'd be like, oh, I don't need to save. Mei Ling's constant like sadness of like, oh, you're not saving. Okay,
Oh.
bye. It's just like, oh no, I felt like it disappointed her every time. I was like, I'm sorry. So
Oh, this is great. I love hearing like players' experiences of the games and stuff. It's like you have no idea what your work affects it affects other people and what their experience of you is, in a way. So
yeah, as a 30-year-old man who's constantly apologizing, I blame Mei Ling. So
Yeah. Would you say that's what makes the work kind of worth it? Is because I think Paul said the same thing to me as well. It's like hearing people's experience really makes the job worth it.
absolutely, it really does because you can't really fathom like how you affect other people and what parts of their lives you become a part of. I mean, I've heard stories of like one guy told me that he and his wife had gotten divorced and his daughter moved away with his wife. And so he would actually meet with his daughter, I think, on World of Warcraft, and they would like play together and just be able to bond and spend time together through the game. Another girl told me about a time when she was growing up and they were really really poor, and she actually had no electricity in her house and she had to plug her her uh, her equipment into the next door neighbor's house, and she played Metal Gear Solid and was it was just a part of her life that was really hard, but the game kind of helped her get through that part of her life and was sort of an escape. And it's just like it's really amazing. It makes me want to cry just to think about it, that people have to go through these periods, but that even a game can help people get through them. And they're good things and constructive things that games do help with, I guess. But
that's awesome.
yeah, I know, isn't that amazing? Because you're like, wow, I'm really glad I was there, for that, in a way.
Going into something like Metal Gear Solid 4, which is again, it was like a decade or whatever after your first gig in this series. Do you carry some of that weight with you when you go in? Like, are you cognizant and thinking about like how the audience is going to react, maybe in a way that you didn't consider when you did the first game?
No, definitely not. That would be way too much to think about. Too much pressure. So no, I just try to keep it very much like I'm in her shoes, living her life, and these are her experiences, and she's now gotten, say, to the point where she's a captain, and she's grown and matured and had a lot of experiences between then and now, and I just try to keep it as organic and limited to her life as possible, not think about anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. This is why I could not be a voice actor.
Think about too much. I think it's
Right.
Yeah, you drive yourself crazy if you were thinking about all the other stuff.
What was it like the energy and the feeling around recording Metal Gear Solid versus coming back for 4? Like, what was the feeling in the room? Did it feel different somehow? Did it feel kind of like, because Metal Gear Solid 4 was very ultimately meant to be the ending of the series for all
Right.
intents and purposes. So how did that feel? Did it change how the room felt when you were recording?
Well, for me, I think I remember 4 being actually, I was recording on my own, not in a session with all the other actors. So
Oh.
it was definitely a different feeling because it was all in isolation and kind of just working out of my own head.
Mm.
But also the first Metal Gear, I remember thinking nobody really knew, like, it was basically one of the very first games, I think, that PlayStation 1 had, and nobody really knew what the platform was going to be like, or even what platform gaming was going to become, and so it was just sort of like, all right, let's record these voices, tell the story, and see what happens. It was just sort of really open-ended and unknown. um, but of course then Metal Gear 4 was more like we knew what was going on, and what we were recording, and um, the franchise and everything too. So it was very, very different, I think. Yeah, the feeling for me.
Just kind of in like a known quantity versus unknown quantity kind of way.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
I always find it super weird that because I believe Mei Ling, even though she doesn't have like a little character portrait, I believe Mei Ling appears in Metal Gear Solid 2 for like
Yeah.
the briefest of moments. What was that like coming in for that, where you were just, I don't know, you almost had like a handful of lines versus being
Right.
like a major player.
Right. Oh no, it was fun. I mean, it was supposed to be, and I don't know if this is true, but it was supposed to be like an Easter egg. Like it wasn't. It was like hidden. Like
Yeah,
you had to
it was a
find
lot of
it.
fun because I had to tell Alessio about it because he didn't know it was a thing.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, that's what they told me. They're like, this is like a hidden Easter egg. Nobody's going to really know about it unless they discover it, and it was really fun because I got to harass. What was it? Was it Ocelot or no?
Or
Otacon,
Otacon.
yeah.
Otacon. Yeah. It was really
Christopher Randolph.
Yeah, yeah. So I liked it. It was fun. I got to be a part of it, so I was happy.
That's very cool. Yeah. Do you like, so I guess, because one of the things that I think, other than because we are going to talk to Christopher Randolph actually, I think in a couple days. Other than speaking with him about this, I mean, we've talked to Cam Clark a little bit about it because he was kind of there for the beginning and then didn't really appear in the series again. Was it weird kind of not being a part of the series for a while and then 4 coming out and you having a chance to kind of come back for that? I mean, is there ever any sort of fear that like, oh, maybe I'm just done moving forward with the series? Because like obviously you weren't there for 3,
Yeah.
so
I don't know. I don't know how other actors feel, but I always like when a job is done, it's done. For me, I don't know what's going to happen from here on out, so I don't really think about it. And I'm just happy if they call me back and have me come in to do some more work, and so that's how it was. I felt for Metal Gear 4. It was like, oh, okay, great. So yeah, there's just really no expectations. Just grateful that to be able to come back when they ask you to. So it was good. All good.
nice. Yeah, very realistic approach.
Yeah.
Everybody at home who's listening, have this approach with everything, because I think, I don't know, I think it's very healthy.
Yeah.
Nice. Speaking about, I guess, additional lines too. Did you? And I feel like, because when we talked to David in the flesh in Seattle, actually. And he had mentioned that I guess for Smash Brothers, he didn't re-record any lines, I don't think, for the most recent Super Smash Brothers, but I think he did for the one prior, or maybe it was Brawl. Anyway, I know that Mei Ling has some lines in there. Did you re-record anything for Smash Brothers?
Nope, just signed a contract. That was it.
Oh, wow.
Easy money. I
That's
like
right.
it.
I know, it can't be any easier than that.
Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, because I always wonder. I'm not sure, and obviously, I think if there's anything that's like super specific, like I feel like Otacon talks about Yoshi, so like I'm sure that must have been re-recorded. But I think if it's ever previous material, obviously they probably just recut it.
Right, yeah.
So nice. Well, I think as far as all the questions that we had prepared and everything like that, I mean, I think we're coming to time here. Now, obviously, we want to be respectful of your time. Sam, did you have anything else that you wanted to mention?
Trying to think. I'm not sure. Well, I guess there was one thing that I wanted to ask that I don't think we got a chance to. What do you think? So back in 1998, you discussed at the beginning of the interview how it wasn't common for them to cast the person whose race it was doing the voice and the voice acting roles, and how you were pleasantly surprised by that. What how do you feel about 1998 versus today representation for Asian Americans in media? How have you seen that change, and where do you think it still needs to go?
Oh, okay. So,
It's kind of a big question, I guess.
Yeah, we saved the big weights for the
right.
end.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's interesting to see how it has evolved over the years. And it definitely has, from, where they didn't necessarily hire an Asian actor to play an Asian character, to now where I get requests from my agent. They're like, well, they really want someone of Japanese ancestry, to play this character, or have, be able to speak Japanese, for real. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to have to pass because I don't qualify for that, So, I mean, it's good that you're really trying to be as authentic as possible. But now also, I also think that the idea of what it is to be Asian or to be of Asian heritage has changed a lot since 20 years ago. We we see a lot more variations and explorations on that theme, I think, than we used to, as people start to tell their unique stories. I think that's really great. I really look forward to the day when we can just really appreciate everybody's differences. Being myself, I'm half Vietnamese and half Lithuanian, and
Oh, wow.
yeah. Just be able to appreciate everybody's differences, but then equally, respect those differences, no matter what it is, whether it's heritage, or, gender, or, orientation, or whatever, however we're unique. It would be a great where we can talk about it and appreciate them, and then respect everybody's differences. I mean, I'm really looking forward to that day where it's almost not even an issue. It's just what it is.
Right. Yeah, and I think one of the weird things that kind of comes from that too, in a positive way, is like I would say it's always interesting for me to kind of, and I only bring this up because I think Metal Gear is actually a really good example of this, is seeing a different culture tackle another culture's I guess storytelling tropes, so to speak.
Okay.
So like this Japanese interpretation of an American action film.
Okay.
Because it almost creates this version that both is and is not what it's trying to be, and then you get this like really interesting, I don't know, kind of like combination of cultural things. And so I don't know, I love that, and I also really appreciate your response. So
okay, cool. Yeah.
But yeah, I think with that is everything. So I would like to say on behalf of us and all of our listeners, thank you so much for taking the time to jump on and chat with us.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.
That's awesome. And yeah, so I guess to kind of wrap things up, where can people find you and your work online if they want to support you? Are there? I know that you said that you were working on an audiobook. Is there any way that people can pre-order that, or can we find some of your other work?
Let's see. Well, yeah. So most of the work that I've been doing is audiobooks. So yeah, you can find that. I think on you can look me up on Audible or iTunes or whatever. But I'm also on Twitter if you ever want to look me up there, and I'll probably post stuff, whatever I'm doing on there. And I don't know. I guess that's it. Like I said, I'm kind of getting back into the auditioning stuff, so hopefully I'll have other stuff to share with people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Thank you so much, and thanks for even coming back. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people that are really excited to have you audition for new roles and see what the future holds. So, congratulations on giving birth in 2011, and congratulations on everything that's coming forward.
Cool. Thank you.
So, thanks. Perfect.
Just a buck.